Hey guys, it's Michelle. So we are finally back to getting to some Bible studies, which I'm really excited about doing. I had some time today, and you guys were the first thing that I thought of doing a Bible study with my extra time. So I'm not sure how many people are going to be able to make it live because it's in the middle of the afternoon. But if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for joining me, and I'm so glad that you are here. So I don't know if you guys remember, but last time we talked about how we are God's sheep and we know his voice and no other one will we follow. Hello, Maia and Tamala. I think I said that right. Tamila DeVille. I like that. That's cute. So we were in John chapter 10, and I really enjoyed doing that study because I think it's really important for us to recognize that we are his sheep and that it's his voice that we hear, and it's his voice and we know it. We know it's his voice, and that's the voice that we follow. So that's what we talked about in John 10. So today we're going to move on to John 11, where Jesus, spoiler alert, raises Lazarus from the dead. It's a really fun story, and not just fun. I remember hearing it as a kid, and I just thought it was the neatest story ever. But it's really powerful as we notice the intense love that Jesus has for his friends. So I want you guys to really keep that in mind as we're reading just how much Jesus loved these people, his friends. So without further ado, we're going to get started because it's a long chapter. Make sure I got all my ducks in a row here. Quack, quack, quack. All right. John 11. I'm in the Geneva Bible. I'm always in the Geneva Bible. However, I do switch around and I compare things. Just this morning, I had read something here in like John 16, and I'll get to that when we get there. And I thought, I wonder if I read that correctly. So I compared it with a couple of other different versions, the King James, the Amplified, to kind of make sure that I did read it. I understood it the way that it was intended. So I do that, but I'm reading from the Geneva. I may be a little bit addicted. That's the setting off of the Mayflower there, and that's the departure of the Mayflower, and that's them kind of landing, and I, obsessed. And this is a plug for Plymouth 2020. We will be going, and I think we have put in the description in a couple different of our episodes to Plymouth in 2020. That's weird to say. June 28th through, we're going to stay through the 5th and celebrate the 4th of July there in Plymouth. We're renting a lake house. And our friends Leo and Nancy at the John Jenney Museum are connected with the Plymouth Rock Foundation. And with John J. Lee, they are going to be doing, I think it's like 4 days of tours and a big, huge 400-year celebration for the Plymouth, for the Pilgrims having landed in Plymouth in 1620. So that's going to happen in June, July of 2020, and I want you guys to be there. So you guys can be praying about that and saving your pennies. We went to book our regular lake house, and the lady emailed Leah back and said, "You're 5 hours too late. Somebody's already booked for that weekend." So if you are thinking about going, pray fervently now because you'll need a place to stay, and they may be hard to find because it's the 4th. It's not just because of the celebration that we're going to be a part of it with the Plymouth Rock Foundation, but also because it's Plymouth and it's the 4th of July weekend. So, all right. So anyway, our Pilgrim forefathers read from the Geneva Bible. That's what they brought over here, and I love that, and so that's one of the reasons why I read from the Geneva. All right. And a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. The very first thing I wrote down, and I already started out with this, is I put his closest friends. You need to understand that as we move forward. These are his closest friends. Maia, you actually give me a good idea. She just posted a link to our website, resistancechicks.com. I'm going to try. Obviously, we are a ways away of doing the Plymouth 2020 thing. What I'm going to do is I'll write an article, and I will pin it to the front page of our of resistancechicks.com with kind of information and letting you guys know about Plymouth 2020, and then you can kind of see it, visualize it for yourself rather than just hearing me speak. So imagine think about your best friends in the whole world, right? You've got your core group of people, maybe it's just one person or whatever. These are your people. These were Jesus's best friends. We always think of just his disciples. Yes, his disciples were his best friends, but he had friends within that group besides the common 12 that they were his closest friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. All right. And it was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. I don't think I wrote anything down about this, but now, John is often referred to as the disciple who Jesus loved, right? He's the one that wrote this. But he says here that Mary and Martha call Lazarus the one who Jesus loved. The one that thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard it, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So let's establish right here at the very beginning, Jesus tells everybody, this sickness is not unto death. Now, you and I both know, if you're familiar with this story, that Lazarus literally does die, right? His body dies. So when Jesus says this sickness is not unto death, he knew there and then that it wasn't the final death, right? So, I just heard my phone go off. Hang on. I'm waiting for a text message from my bee mentor. That's not him. So, I have a bee question. Yes, I've been keeping bees for 4 or 5 years, and every once in a while a situation comes up where even I need to ask advice. All right, so Jesus knows this isn't unto death. He tells them right away. Now, if you're the people surrounding Jesus, like how much of this is sinking in that you're paying attention to, right? Because later on, when you find out that you're going to see where Lazarus was buried, and you're going, well, I don't know, Jesus, you might have missed that one. I don't know. You know what I mean? Because he literally tells them, it's not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. That's himself, the Son of God. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. They're his closest friends. Keep that in mind, guys. And after he had heard that he was sick, yet abode he 2 days still in the same place where he was. I wrote down, sometimes God delays so we might see a greater miracle. How many times in your life are you like, God, and you're praying, like, God, I know you can answer this. We're waiting. We're right here. I know this is your will. I know this is what can get done, and we're just praying. Sometimes God does delay so that the greater miracle can happen. And you'll find as we continue to read on, if Jesus had come earlier, then he would have just stopped Lazarus from dying and not actually have raised him from the dead, which was the greater miracle, which allowed him, the Son of God, to be glorified more. That being said, I still find it hilarious that Jesus is like, Lazarus is sick. He's the one that Jesus loves. So says John here, that the sister said, the one that you love. And Jesus is like, coming, be right there. And he waits 2 days. If one of my best friends is sick and I have the ability, I'm going, right? I'm going right then and there, especially if I have the ability to do something about it to make them better. He abode there 2 days. I'm coming, says Jesus. All right. Then after that, said he to the disciples, let us go unto Judea again. All of a sudden, okay. The disciples said unto him, Master, the Jews lately sought to stone thee, and dost thou go thither again? They had already tried to kill him in Judea. And the disciples are kind of like, you do remember that. And then the stones, and then we hightailed it out of there, and it could get a little sketchy. Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If a man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. I wrote this down. That's confusing. Those are kind of a confusing set of verses there. But Jesus is saying, if you stay in the light of God, you will be safe and be able to see the dangers that are coming. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to read those two verses again. I said, Jesus is saying, if you stay in the light of God, you will be safe and be able to see the dangers that are coming. I'm going to read those verses again. Are there not 12 hours in the day? If a man walk in the day, he stumbles not, because he sees the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. When we have the light of God in us, we are able to see the dangers that are set before us. And so the disciples had just said it's dangerous for us to go there. And Jesus is saying, I have the light. I can see the dangers that are coming. All right. These things spake he, and after he said unto them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go to wake him up. Now, when he said sleepeth there, well, let me just keep reading. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall be safe. You and I know that if we rest when we're sick, then we're likely to get better. Not what Jesus was talking about, people. They're a little, sometimes those disciples. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought he had spoken of the natural sleep. I'm going to make sure I'm not missing any of my notes here. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, dude. Okay, he didn't say dude. Dude, Lazarus is dead. Hello, he sleepeth. It's, not that kind of sleep. And I am glad for your sakes, he says, that I was not there, that ye may believe. But let us go unto him. These disciples, in their denseness, I can only imagine what they were thinking. Like, you just said he's dead, and you just said you're glad. And I'm sure some of them were kind of wondering, like, is he going to raise him from the dead? Can he do that? We've seen miracles and stuff, but like, they had to be wondering. They'd have to be super dense not to kind of wonder when Jesus is saying, that the greater miracle would happen. They can't be that slow. Come on. I know they're slow, but they can't be. They were chosen for a reason. All right. What did I write down? I said, he knew the miracle he would perform. Note, verse 4, he knew that the sickness wasn't meant to kill or bring death. All right, verse 16. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Come on, Thomas. Really. And he was the one in the doubt. All right. Okay. You got to feel for Thomas. Like, just for 1 second, let's think about this. He's forever known by all Christendom, and then some people outside of Christianity, as being doubting Thomas, right? And then he also has this kind of one moment here. I want to talk to Thomas, and I kind of want to pat him on the back. Like, dude, you were with Jesus. You were chosen. We knew, even though your part wasn't highlighted, the good things, you got to feel for him, okay? All right, so then came Jesus and found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now, Bethany was near unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. That's like 2 miles. Okay. All right. And many of the Jews were come to Martha and Mary to comfort them for their brother. The study note there says, and I literally wrote down, whoa, study note. God is the maker of nature. God who is the maker of nature, doth not condemn natural affections, but shows that they ought to be examined by the rule of faith. That's pretty good. I forgot that said that. No wonder I wrote, whoa. I'm going to reread the verse and then reread the study note again so you can capture that. Okay. And many of the Jews were come to Martha and to Mary to comfort them for their brother. Study note there says, God, who is the maker of nature, he's the maker of our emotions, doth not condemn natural affections, but shows that they ought to be examined by the rule of faith. So, when bad things happen, our natural responses were created by God. Okay? So he doesn't condemn them. He doesn't say, how dare you, our dogs, both of them passed away um, within the space of 5 weeks of each other. And that natural affection, like literally I'll find myself, I'm fine throughout the day, and then all of a sudden I'm sobbing. And it's not for no reason. It's a very real reason, right? God doesn't say, I have so many more greater things for you. What's wrong with you? And slap you upside the head. Like, no, he understands natural affection. At the same time, within that, I do it, and Leah's been doing it, and Kansas has been doing it as well. When and I'm just, this is what's happening to me right now. I know dogs passing away are not the same as humans, but you should write what you know. You should speak what you're going through. God does have so many more things for us in the future, whether it's dogs or children or friends or you name it. It could be anything. And so what we do when we think about the amazing time that we had with our dogs, the fact that we're sad that they're not here, we also, it says, it should be examined by the rule of faith. You allow yourself the emotions and you go through the mourning process, and then at the same time you constantly remind yourself that God gave us that gift to start with, and he is the Father that knows to give good gifts, and he has more things for us in the future that will take, it's kind of, we talked about it this way. Our life, that we had with the dogs, and a lot of us can do this with different sections of our life. It's like a puzzle. And once you complete that puzzle, if you've ever done puzzles before, I really enjoy doing them. Once it's completed, you're kind of sad, like, oh, it's over now, right? But then you're excited that it's completed. Then you get to see every part of it that maybe you missed, and putting things together. And then some people frame them and put the glue on it, and then you can look at it always, which I think is a great idea. But then you get to start another puzzle, and the joy of a puzzle isn't it being done, or else you could just buy a poster of the same thing. The joy is in making it, and the joy in having loved ones or animals or certain periods of our life is in that, walking that out with them. But then when it is finished, you should still be satisfied of completing it. It's something to be completed. Each section of our life is something to be completed. So within the natural emotions of feeling the loss, we do have to constantly compare it with the rule of faith, which is faith says God wants good things for us. So that's really, really powerful. And again, with the Geneva thing, the reason why I read the study notes is because this was the very first study Bible ever written. When the Bible, I think it was, I don't even remember the year, but when the Bible was put into the language of the common man, Martin Luther, you could read it, but there wasn't a Bible that had notes for you to understand it. So the writers that translated the Geneva Bible also took the time, very tedious time, to these were the greatest scholars of their time, most of which also translated the King James Bible, but the King James Bible didn't have study notes. The greatest theological minds of their time are the ones that wrote, and I believe totally anointed by God. I've read through, I would say, well over 3/4 of this Geneva Bible as reading through, not just going back and forth, but I mean like straight through, reading every single study note and every single cross-reference. And I've only found about 3 interpretations that their study notes say that I disagree with. I'd say that's pretty good. So anyway, and who's saying that I'm the one that's right and they're wrong? I don't know. I'm just saying that it melds with my spirit anyway. So that's, to me, the study notes are really, really important. All right, we were just in verse 19. So if you're reading long. Then Martha, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not been dead. That's really powerful faith, just starting right there. Whether she's believing that God can raise him from the dead or not, I truly believe that she did. She knew that he could. But just saying that alone, I believe that you hold the healing power that would have saved my brother from dying in the first place. But now I know also that whatsoever thou asks of God, God will give it thee. To me, that's proof in the pudding that she believed that that Jesus could raise him from the dead. Because Jesus' answer, this is kind of a very interesting exchange here, because he knew that what she was talking about, that she had the faith that he could raise him from the dead, but he doesn't answer her directly. He says, Jesus said unto her, thy brother shall rise again. And Martha says unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? So he goes out and he explains it to her. I am the resurrection and the life. Anybody that believes in me shall be raised to. And then he asks her, do you believe this? I just wrote down on that. I just said it's interesting that he asked her. And it is really interesting that he asked her. And she said unto him, yea, Lord, that's yes, yea, Lord, I believe that thou art that Christ, that Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, the Master is come and calleth for thee. That was enough. He asked her, do you believe me? And she says, yes, I believe that you are the Son of God. And then she leaves. They had an exchange there that's very unique and very special, I think, where Jesus was essentially telling her, I'm going to raise your brother from the dead. This is about to happen. So then Martha goes to Mary, and Mary says, come, the Master calls you. And when she had heard it, she arose quickly and came unto him. For Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews then, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily, went out and followed her, saying, she goeth unto the grave to weep there. I think that's really interesting. They thought, oh, she's going to go weep. So this is at a time in the Jewish culture was a culture of mourning. These people knew how to weep, and they knew how to wail, and they knew how to do it. I mean, they would get together and like have these like wailing parties, man. Your brother died, and I'm just gonna cry with you, and I'm gonna mourn. And the Bible does say to mourn with those that mourn, and weep with those that weep, and to rejoice with those that rejoice. And we are supposed to empathize and sympathize and go through trials with those that are going through them. Sydney was Matt's dog, and Sydney was very, very close to Leah. I loved Sydney so much, but I couldn't make her attached to me the way that she was attached to Leah and to Kansas, and his attachment to her. And I found that when they were crying and when they were mourning, I felt it all the more than even for myself, because I was feeling their pain, and still do, for their loss as well. And we are supposed to do that with those that we are in covenant with, to weep with those that weep, to mourn with those that mourn. So these people were, all right, if Mary's going, she's going to go mourn. We're going to follow her. We are with you, or excuse me, Martha, or Mary. Yeah, that's right. they were with each other through and through. You're going to go to the grave and weep. We're going to go and weep with you. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him the same thing. Sisters, sister alert. Leah and I do this all the time. We say we're very different, but at the same time we are very, very much the same. We do the same, we will say the same things, we process things the same way, and she says the exact same thing that Martha said to Jesus. Jesus must have been like repeating. This is a repeat all over again. She says, Master, if thou hadst been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus therefore saw her weep, and the Jews also weep, which came with her, groaned in the spirit, and was troubled in himself. Now, the study note there says, these are tokens that he was greatly moved, but yet they were without sin, and these affections are proper to man's nature. Now, remember what we just talked about in the study note from verse 19. God, who is the maker of nature, doth not condemn natural affections, but shows that they ought to be examined by the rule of faith. It's often said in the church, when reading this story, and I'm going to contest it here, right now, because I'm not the only one that says this, by the way. The Geneva Study Note people saw it this way as well. So I'm not alone in this, but it does bear noting that there is a difference of theological opinion here. That when Jesus groaned in himself, when he saw them weeping, that he was, a lot of people think he was upset, like these pitiful people that don't know that I've come to, heal this guy, their lack of faith. That is not what is being said here. That is wrong. All right. Jesus had natural affections, and he hurt because the people around him were hurting. Okay, he knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, okay? But his best friends, Martha and Mary, and the Jews around them that were weeping, were sad. And they were hurting. They were really, really hurting. This story kind of feels like it's at a distance because we didn't know Lazarus and Mary and Martha, but these were very real people to them. And I want you to imagine somebody very real to you. They're gone. And you're mourning, and your friends are mourning with you. And Jesus, in his natural human affection, wept with them. Okay? The shortest verse in the Bible is coming up here. It says, and said, where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. And it says, and Jesus wept. There's verse 35. He wept. It wasn't I can't believe these people don't know that I'm coming to heal Lazarus and gonna raise him from the dead, and they have so much doubt, and I'm sick of these people. That's not what it was. He wept. He wept with them. They had lost their brother. They'd lost their friend. They were hurting. And Jesus wept with them, even though he knew what he was about to do. He knew that their joy... I was just reading in John 16 about how a woman, when she is giving birth, it's painful and it's hard. And it's awful. And it says she sorrows for the pain. She knows a baby is about to be born. That doesn't mean that the pain of going through it doesn't hurt. And then it says after the baby's born, then she forgets and it's all great. Okay. But Jesus decided to be in that moment with these people and weep with them. It shows the most human side of Jesus, I believe, that is portrayed in his time here in the New Testament. And Jesus wept. Now, let's see if I'm not missing any. Okay, my study notes here, my own personal notes. Then said the Jews, behold how he loved him. And some of them said, could not he which opened the eyes of the blind have made also that this man should not have died? Jesus therefore again groaned in himself and came to the grave. Very, very human side of Jesus to hear those words in the face of something that had happened. They were still kind of judgmental and ridiculing. And it was a cave, and a stone was laid upon it. And Jesus said, take ye away the stone. Now, any stone that's bigger than like this is heavy. All right. So again, I'm thinking about, the stone that was rolled away, and Jesus, I mean, these people have to, like, this is a big deal that we're going to roll this stone away. I watched, Uncle Jack had taped something on National Geographic about, which you could take with a grain of salt, by the way, about the tomb of Jesus and the Church of the Sepulchre, Holy Sepulchre. But they do talk about the stone that would have covered the tomb there, and the types of tombs that would have existed at the time. And within that, we're talking about a big stone. Okay, so it would have taken, what Jesus is asking here is not, hey, open that door. Right? Big deal to roll this stone away. And Martha, sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, he stinketh already, for he hath been dead 4 days. And Jesus said unto her, and he reminds her of the conversation that they just had, said I not unto thee that if thou didst believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? I wrote down, reminding her to have faith. They wouldn't be going to the tomb if they didn't expect to see he might raise him. So Jesus is often quoted as saying when he healed somebody, your faith has made you whole. Your faith has made you whole. And having gone into towns where he couldn't work miracles. Why? It's very important for us to expect a miracle from God, to have that expectation. It creates an atmosphere that is conducive for a miracle to happen. So I want you guys to take that in your own lives. And with Jesus reminding Martha to have faith, he needed that atmosphere that was conducive of faith. Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee because thou hast heard me. He already knew that Jesus had heard him. I know that thou hearest me always, but because of the people that stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. I wrote down, he even says that it's so that they might know. It's very fascinating to me that Jesus is having a conversation with God, and at the same time telling the people that the reason that he's having this verbal conversation with God is so that they can believe. Wow. Wow. That's so cool to me. Jesus is saying, listen, I know that you hear me all the time, but I'm saying this out loud so that those that are around me may believe that you have sent me. As he had spoken these things, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth! Why did it have to be a loud voice? Like, I wonder how loud, right? Do you ever think about these things when you're reading the word? Like, just how loud was this loud cry of Jesus? Probably louder than what I just did. Lazarus, come forth! With a loud voice, he cries. Then, and did it take a loud voice for Jesus to wake up Lazarus? Then he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with bands, and his face was bound with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, Loose him and let him go. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things with which Jesus did believed in him. I literally wrote next to that, of course, with an exclamation point. Of course they believed. They just saw him raise Lazarus from the dead. Of course they believed. Now it's interesting that it says many. Well, who were the other people? What kind of person is that they didn't believe? I mean, come on. Seriously, what else do you need? What more? What more do you need to see? So, the study note there says, the last point of hard and iron-like stubbornness is this: to proclaim open war against God, yet ceases, I'm going to say ceases, not to make a presence both of godliness and the profit of commonwealth. I wrote down, strange study note. Wow, open war. To see God and still go against him. The commonwealth, not to want people better. And that's going into what the next verse that I'm about to read here. Because the Sanhedrin and the priests and the Pharisees are upset at this. Okay? And the study note there calls it open war against God. And I think to me, that kind of reminds me of the unpardonable sin. Once you've tasted of God and you know who he is, to turn your back on him and deny wanting to be a part of that. And I think that with some of the priests and the Sanhedrin here, we see that. And when that happens, when you know who God is, like the devil knows who God is, and he doesn't want him. That's open war. And that's what these people have declared. Then gathered the high priests and the Pharisees a council and said, What shall we do? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and the nation. There's a lot going on here. I want you to think about this for a second. Lazarus is raised from the dead, which causes these people, the priests and the Sanhedrin and the scribes and Pharisees, all of them, to gather together and be like, what do we do now? Now, it's interesting to note their reasoning behind why they were doing, why were they so upset? And it tells us right here, if we let him alone, all men will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and the nation. They were more worried about themselves and their positions than they were in trying to understand a man that could heal people. Whether you believed that he was the Son of God or not, he's healing people. You ought to let him alone. It's not like he's damaging people, you know. This is the ultimate, the epitome of a blind lust for power, of truly wanting to just seek out what is best for you. And they were doing it in a group. They were talking openly about this. Now, then one of them, named Caiaphas, which was the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye perceive nothing at all, nor yet do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. This spake he not of himself, but being high priest that same year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but he should gather together in one the children of God which were scattered. Again, there's a lot going on here, and I want to break this down. Let's start with the study notes here. With Caiaphas in verse 49, it says, The raging and mad company of the false church persuade themselves that they cannot be in safety unless he is taken away, who only upholdeth the church. And so likewise judgeth the wisdom of the flesh in worldly affairs, which is governed by the spirit of giddiness or madness. And that's what I was just saying, this blind lust for power. It's like, it's this giddy madness. Okay. Now, for you to understand that there is a flowing of the Holy Spirit that continued with the office of the high priest since it was instituted by God in the Old Testament with the Levites. And it's very fascinating to me to see something here that Caiaphas prophesied Jesus's death. And it says it's because he was the high priest that he was in that office. Okay, I think that's so interesting. Verse 51, where it says, this spake he not of himself, but because he was the high priest, he prophesied that Jesus should die for the nation. The study note there says, Christ doth sometimes so turn the tongues, even of the wicked, that in cursing they may bless. And I just wrote down blessing into cursing. There are people that speak into your life, into my life, into our lives, that would like to speak a curse over your life. And God is a professional at turning curses into a blessing when they are spoken over his people. So I want you guys to hold on to that as a word just for you today. All right, we are in. All right, where it says, gather together in one, the children of God, which were scattered. The study note there says, for they were not gathered together in one country, as the Jews were, but to be gathered from all quarters, from the east to the west, all mankind, you and I, the Jews, the Gentiles, together. Then from that day forth, they consulted together to put him to death. It's interesting because they had already tried to stone him once. And I think that was more out of a passioned moment of, now we're going to kill you. They consorted here. Okay. They had consorted together. It says they consulted. They had made an official decision. How are we going to get rid of this guy? Okay. And Caiaphas says, we got to kill this guy to save the nation. But he didn't realize what he was saying. Jesus must die to save the nation. It's very, very powerful. Verse 54, Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence unto a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. The study note there here says, we may give place to the rage of the wicked when it is expedient so to do, but yet in such sort that we swerve not from God's vocation. Now again, because these are like written in older English, they've kind of brought in this new version of the Geneva Bible, they've kind of updated some things that just sounded ridiculous, but they tried their best to keep it as, my point is, it's a tongue twister and it's hard to understand what they're saying, so I'm going to tell you. That is, there are times when evil and the world come against us and it may seem like we're backing down, okay? When no, it's the Lord to avoid that situation. I think of the Columbine kids, the shooting, the Columbine. I think it was like the 20-year anniversary recently. And I've always said this about the young lady who was asked, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember it vividly. It happened in my generation. She was asked if she believed in God, and she stood up and she said yes, and they shot her. And she is a martyr, and she received a martyr's crown. Do not misunderstand me with what I'm about to say here. Her brother hid under the table. There are times when it would seem like we are catering to the devil and allowing him to have his way. Okay. But as long as it doesn't, it says, if we swerve not from God's vocation, staying on, we just saw Pilgrim's Progress, so staying on the highway of holiness, you can avoid evil. As long as you're on that highway of holiness, you can avoid it. You don't have to face it head on. You don't have to take it down every time, because God may not be calling you to do so. At other times, he may be calling you to do so and you're backing down, and that's a lot of trouble. You have to differentiate. But I think that in this, we see Jesus use wisdom, because guess what? His time hadn't yet come. And so could he have remained in that situation, remained there, remained out in the open, and kept them from capturing him? Well, he's the Son of God, so yes. But he didn't. And I find it very interesting that he used wisdom to avoid those confrontations, to allow himself to be used elsewhere in this interim time. Okay? All right, let's see. I lost my verse here. All right, there we go. We are in verse 55. And the Jews' Passover was at hand. Now we're in the days of unleavened bread right now. So it's Passover season. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Verse 56. Then sought they for Jesus, and spake amongst themselves, as they stood in the temple, What think ye, that he cometh not to the feast? Now, both the high priests and the Pharisees had given a commandment, that if any man knew where he were, he should show it, that they might take him. Sorry, I have this thing in my nose. I wrote down, they want to kill and take him, yet he doesn't show, and they wonder why. Huh? These people. Where is he? Where is he? Why isn't he here? When he gets here, we're going to kill him. I mean, this is so ridiculous. This is absolute insanity. He doesn't come because they're going to kill him. And yet they're like, well, why doesn't he come? We just going to kill him when he gets here. Ain't it a wonder? There are so many things that are fascinating when you break it down verse by verse, which is why I love doing this with you guys. So we're going to finish. We're going to stop there at the end of chapter 11. With that, because I think it's fantastic that the process that goes through. Now, you and I, hindsight is 2020, so we know what's going to happen. They didn't exactly know what was going to happen, and to just hear the very real and human reasoning and conversation amongst these evil people that sought to kill Jesus. I think it's just very, very interesting to note that. So next time, we are going to probably do a combination. Let me go back here and look, of John 12 and 13 together. We'll see. But I am really excited about moving forward, because this is where I would say it starts to really get interesting. This this story and this process of Jesus and his conversation, and them keeping in mind that he had just raised Lazarus from the dead. I mean, the ultimate of miracles, right? When I think of raising from the dead, we have Elijah, right? Who had performed this miracle. So it's not that the raising of the dead was completely far-fetched and out of their mind. But when we look at Elijah, or was it Elisha? No, I can't remember which one it was. Somebody can correct me here in the chat. I think it's Elijah. Anyway, they held Elijah and Elisha as the highest of prophets, right? So if they can see that Jesus performing this miracle at least puts him among the prophets, which I think is very interesting, because it's not a very far step from that to go, you know what? He's the Son of God. And so anyway, so Tanya Bear wants to know, why did you go to a Southern drawl with that kind of thing, mimicking the men who wanted to kill him. That's an interesting subconscious instinct. Thank you, Maia. Maia says it was Elijah. Um, I don't know. That I could go to any but what would you go to? Would you go to the? I mean, what other accent? I think it's not really a subconscious thing. It's just that that's the easiest accent that I can go to. Go to the British people. Take him away, off with his head. That sort of thing. I don't know. It's just much easier to go. The country accent is far easier to go to for me than anything else because we hear it the most. I am not too far from mimicking and making fun of any accent, including an advanced form of my own, which is more northern. I don't know that we're going to have the northerners, the northern accent crucifying Christ. Soul there. Tiny Bear says, I don't know, it just jumped out to me. So I have no idea. It just came out that way. Who knows? Let me see what else. Let's see. Jeannie, you spell your name the way that my mother does. Thank you, Michelle. You make our Bible study fun and interesting. I'm very glad to hear that. It's fun for me as well. So my life has changed now that, well, for several reasons, to be perfectly honest with you. We don't have the dogs, and they were taking up a lot of our time. I don't know if I told you guys this, but my shoulder, talk about how Jesus praying, I tore my AC joint in my shoulder. And I thought it was my rotator cuff. It's my AC joint. I don't know if it's better or worse that way, but that's what it is. And so I'm very limited in the things that I can do. Leah is constantly yelling at me not to do things, and I'm finding myself getting frustrated at her, but it's not her fault. I literally shouldn't be doing them. My point is, pray for Leah for one, because she has had to take over like all of the dog walks that I can't do because it requires a yanking of my arm or a firm, steady hand. She's had to do a lot of those pet visits. And then yesterday I got out the weed eater and started it for her. I think it might have been like the first time she's ever used that weed eater. I have one of those two-handed still ones. It's a beast, and we've got a lot that needs to be weeded. Easy for me to say. And she did all of that. And she did a lot of push mowing, which we bag up grasses for the pigs. And Kansas was out there mowing and doing a lot of things. When it comes to working on the deck, there's a lot that I can't do, which I'm out there helping. But my point is, yesterday I spent all day doing a bunch of things around the farm. But I do have more time on my hands because there are so many things that I can't do. I'm doing a lot of cooking and cleaning. Last night I had a fire because we had to clean up sticks in the yard, and we roasted potatoes and put some pork in the cast iron skillet with some carrots and buried it in the coals. It was really good. So I'm hoping to do more Bible studies because I have more time, but I kind of feel really guilty because Leah's having to bear all of this, but she told me yesterday that she felt that I should do more Bible studies. So if that's what the person that's taking up all my tasks wants me to do, then by all means, then that's what I'm going to do. So we'll see when we have time to. I would love, like I said, I want to do them more often. Obviously, than once a month, which is like what it's been now. I'd like to do them once or twice a week. So hopefully we'll get to John 12 and 13 within the next few days, maybe even. So I love that you guys love to be here as a part of my Bible studies. They're not just mine, they're ours together. We're a group. So Stefan says, thanks, Michelle. I enjoyed the live Bible study. So what says, let some Pablo do the work, promise him pay, and rat him out to the border police. No, thank you. I'll tell you what, as much as I don't want the illegals coming over here because it's not good for them, it's not good for us, it's not good for our country. They're not bad people, most of them. I've not really, besides the ones that catcall, I don't even know that makes them a bad person, but every time I run into them, if you have a real conversation, they're good, kind people. That doesn't mean that our country has to open up their borders to all good and kind people, but you know what I'm saying. It's not, they're not bad people. They're really, really good people, and they are hard workers. So if I could hire a Mexican to do a lot of things around here, if I could afford to do so, I would. But as much as they even work for cheap pay, I still can't afford to hire somebody. So, all right. Boss Torres says that they love the Bible study as well. Thank you. Thanks to our moderators who showed up. Redneck. He says, maybe do a little revelations every now and then. Good for the spirit. You know, I will tell you something. When I was growing up, and I need to sign up, guys. I got to go. We're almost at an hour here. I am going to go help them on the deck. They're not back home yet, but when they get home, we're gonna get started on the deck again. When I was a kid, Revelations was my favorite book, and the Pilgrims, Revelations. It's just Revelation. Why do we say Revelations? It's Revelation minus the S. It's the same way when you quote a one psalm. You should say Psalm such and such, not Psalms, but I do it too. So anyway, Revelation was my favorite book. It was the Pilgrim's favorite book. And it is good for the spirit. And I'll tell you what, maybe as the Lord leads, we will get to it. But I want to compare something to you. I want to show you something. All right. Well, actually, most of the New Testament has hefty study notes. But all right, so here we are in Luke. This is Luke. Now, here, where's the, if I can even see. You can see where the study notes start, like down here, like where my pinky is. Okay? Yeah. I want to show you the study notes. Whole daggone page. Okay, this is Revelation. Starts like up here. All right? The whole page is study notes. There's a lot to be gleaned from the book of Revelation, especially the way that the Pilgrims interpreted it, the way that these the people that wrote this Geneva Bible interpreted it. It is really, really fascinating. I think it'll take a lot to go through that. A lot. So we're probably not going to throw that in right away. And if we do that, if we do Revelation, it'll probably have to be like a joint Bible study where Pastor Leah comes in and helps us out with that, because it's a book that I believe is not just meant for the end times. It's meant for our current everyday process and relationship with God, and what is happening in the world continues to be seen. You could literally play out what happened to the Pilgrims through the entire book of Revelation. It's a book that we are meant to use in our everyday life. And so it's multifaceted. Let's put it that way. So, all right. I love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. We'll be live on Friday for our weekly roundup. I'm not sure about Sunday, to be perfectly honest with you, because our cousins are coming for a belated Easter celebration. My Uncle Jack that lives with us, that we take care of, his two sons and their sons will be coming over for us to do a belated Easter celebration on Sunday. So usually when they do that, they come right after church. So I don't know that we're going to be doing a show on Sunday. So I do need to let you guys know that. But if that's the case, I'll put out a video saying, hey, don't show up today. So, all right, you guys, we'll see you Friday for sure. And we'll let you guys know about Sunday. But yeah, let's not count on a Sunday show. Perhaps we might just move the time later in the evening. Who knows? But I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. It's Wednesday. You're halfway through the week, but every day should be rejoiced. It shouldn't be like what do they call Wednesday hump day? Because you're kind of going over. I think that every day should be a good day. So Walk the Talk says, God bless all. Tanya Bear says, have a good day. But share this video, because I think there are a lot of people that need to hear about that resurrecting life power that Jesus has, that dwells within all of us all the time. And so what? I am so glad that you come to our Bible study streams. It thrills my heart that So What, who has, I would say recently, within my knowing of him, become an agnostic, I'm going to call you, not an atheist, still comes to the Bible studies. That's what I call real support for resistance chicks. If you watch Michelle's Bible studies and you don't believe in God, but you watch because you support our channel, God bless you all.